So I guess it's time for me to tell you a little bit about me. Most of you know me, but I was born and raised in country Western Australia in a small town called Esperance. I have three older brothers. I had a dominating dad and a very kind, beautiful mum. I always knew from a really young age a few things that made no sense to me. But one was that I was going to be teaching people, and it's been a 30-year journey of working out what that was going to be, and it's had many faces. Having worked in the health industry for over 20 years as a naturopath, a beautician, a remedial massage therapist, a metaphysical healer, now with the doctor of osteopathy, I have seen what works and what does not work, and what is missing from both sides. So I kind of truly bring together that science meets hippie approach, and they need to be brought back together as they are as important as each other, and one can only go so far as much as the other. But how did this all come about, and why have I, through many tears and laughter, decided to dedicate my existence to learning more about the human body in all aspects? But I think it was pretty much on the cards since birth. So I'm very fortunate to have been born a true seeker, and that my hyper focus with ADHD found its way into being obsessed about the human body and well-being. So I've always felt in my body, I've always felt that the mind, body, spirit, intellects has been interconnected, and that there's this magical interplay between those things to create true health. But what you might not know about me is obviously my journey of how I became a health professional. So I was one of those freaky little children that unfortunately had an anaphylactic reaction to my triple antigen needle, my first vaccination as a wee little one, which led to me dying many times. Mum tells me of a story of when I was little that for the first 4 days of my life, if she didn't pat me on the back, I literally would stop breathing and she'd have to resuscitate me. And it took 4 days to them to send a nurse out to my mum because she was on her own. And the nurse quite patronizingly said to my mum, "Oh dear, it's just your first child, you don't understand." And she quickly rebutted with the fact that this was her fourth, and none of them required patting on their back to stay alive. So anyway, they rushed me off to hospital, and I spent quite a bit of time in a humi-crib getting my lungs pumped. And back in 1976, unfortunately, the only way that they believed to sustain me was by putting me on 18 months straight of antibiotics. So you can imagine what 18 months of antibiotics does to an infant's microbiome. And we have 17 microbiomes in the human body. So my gastrointestinal microbiome, my respiratory, and my vagina microbiomes are the one that really stuck out as symptoms that interplayed to how I became a health professional. My first memories of my vagina was literally laying on the kitchen bench, screaming as I'm trying to rip this painful red raw irritation out between my legs. And that had a huge effect on my self-esteem as a girl and as a woman, and that played out for quite some time, but I'll go more into how that got resolved later. I was also left with Bell palsy. So if you don't know what Bell palsy was, it's kind of like mild droopiness on the right. I had it on the right hand side of my body, so I can tell when I'm tired that this eye still drags a bit, this side of my mouth has an interplay. But as a little girl, I used to have this foot that was kind of turned inwards and a little bit draggy when I got tired. And I remember being at the show, like every country has its show. So here I am as a little one walking up to this clown man, and they kind of freaked me out. Those clowns that had their mouths wide open, and you had to shove a ball down the throat and hope that you would get a high score to get the teddy bear in the background. Anyway, I walked up there, and this guy behind the counter said, "I can fix that." And Mum very suspiciously with an eagle eye watched him as he took me into the back of the caravan. And I remember sitting on this stainless steel cold bench, and he grabbed up high and he tweaked something really high up in my groin. And whatever he did, my little leg straightened and the drop had gone. So I think that literally was the reference point I can link on to the point that I started massaging my dad when I was about 5, and the obsession of how the body works and how you can heal it. I'm obviously reading this a little bit. So the other thing that happened in my childhood and into my high school years is that I would always get these respiratory infections, and chronic bronchitis would hang around for 3-4 months every time I got sick, and that would happen a couple times a year. I remember just having a constant humidifier in my room to enable me to breathe. And it wasn't until I was 19, and like by then I'd had CAT scans on my head, I'd done all the allergy testing. I was at the point where they were trying to give me asthma pumps, and I was trying to explain that this whooping style cough that I get in the middle of the night that chokes me to almost vomiting has nothing to do with my lungs and asthma. It's a completely different reaction. But through studying in Perth, I was doing a human biology and a sports science double major. I only got 2 years into that one before I went traveling. But I ended up working for this incredible woman, Dr. Elizabeth Nottage, and she was at least 20 years before her time, and she was dealing with dysbiosis. So I ended up doing work experience for 2 weeks with her, and everyone that came in, it didn't matter if it was menopause, it didn't matter if it was allergies, it didn't matter if it was infertility, she would treat their gut. So whether they had malabsorption or leaky gut. And when she treated their gut, and sorted that, all of their symptoms went, and it didn't matter what you came in with. So here I am working with this lady and bugging her and showing up literally every week, to the point that she sacked her 2 receptionists that employed me. As a dyslexic, not the best decision, but very good at selling her functional foods. And I would get this cough at work, it started, and I would cough and cough and cough and have to go outside and try and prevent myself from vomiting because the reflex was just so strong. So she got sick of that and tested me. So we worked out that I had leaky gut. And I went through a process where I did an elimination diet similar to what you guys will be doing, where I cut out wheat, yeast. I didn't really drink sugar, all the things that are the common allergens that cause inflammation, and took some products that literally would help line and heal my gut. And we healed my gut, and all of my symptoms of childhood went. The vagina was still a works in process, but it definitely had alleviated it quite a bit. So from there, I literally went, okay, I really want to be a naturopath. Didn't know if I'd get in because, you know, my brother forgot to check the mail to say that I did get in. And yeah, I became a skimpy for 11 weeks and traveled the world instead for 2 years before I finally came over to the East Coast to become a naturopath. So you imagine I got to Byron to become a naturopath, and I learned more about what we call dysbiosis, which is now the trendy name for microbiome. And to work out there was a vagina microbiome, like you would not imagine what I've shoved up my vagina. Everything from natural yogurt to garlic to borax, different kinds of bugs trying to solve this issue. And it's, you know, under control, but it's something that I know that I'm always going to have to look after specifically, because what I see is that people with the vagina in particularly, and the gut, that they go in and they find one microbiome and they decide with, you know, the medical world influence of this is the bad guy, let's kill it. And what we're doing is we're literally taking out biodiversity, and we're creating these monocultures within our microbiomes that are in fact worse than having potentially an apex predator in there, where we could treat that and rebalance things out so that you've got no symptomology. They can still be there, but they just don't get to be the predominant kind. So anyway, came to naturopathy, got that degree, was loving it, went, all right, I'm on track and this is going to be great. And then yeah, 2 things happened. 3/4 of the way through, unfortunately, my dad decided to take his life, which, you know, fucked you up. No little girl's meant to lose the man that's meant to have their back their whole life. And I was the last one to talk to him and was really honest with what he'd been doing in the family. And I'm grateful for the conversation we had, because I was able to tell him I loved him, but it made me really look at mental health and what support people have in the community when they really hit that point where death is a better alternative to life. And so I think that's where I really added in how important our mental health is for an aspect, and our emotional, not just our physical just thinking about Dad. The other thing is also your spiritual connection, because I know that Dad didn't feel connected to anything greater than himself, let alone the family or some purpose that's greater than what we are. Anyway, I ended up joining a cult after that, and I worked out that in the 7 years that I worked for this lady, and I call it a cult because there's really no other better definition of working for free for 7 years, 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, that after only having 17 days off in 7 years, I got quite sick. And I got down to 62 kilos, which is highly malnutritioned for someone of my height. I should be more in my 70 kilos pluses. So after I left there, I ended up, doing some more crazy things. And I finally went back to study osteopathy. And it was in doing that degree that I thought I was going to find the answers. Like, if I could do osteopathy, then I would have the thing. And osteopathy was brilliant. And I am incredibly grateful that I did naturopathy. And it wasn't until I found this brilliant quote between Dr. Andrew Still is the father of osteopathy, and Benedict Lust is the father of naturopathy in America. And they're having this conversation on Black Porch. I found this in an old journal, and this conversation they're having where the father of osteopathy is pretty much saying to the father of naturopathy that I wish I hadn't agreed to the medical board to not include nutrition and herbs, because if I had have included those in the becoming a doctor of osteopathy, I would have had a complete health science. And I kind of felt like this massive aha moment where I'm bringing these two things that used to be together back together. So that was exciting. And then unfortunately in 2019, 3/4 of the way through my degree, I had another family member decide to take their life, my brother, who was the youngest to me, 7 years older. And I quit uni for a year, again, going, what is the point? But rather than get depressed, it was this incredible time that, the pandemic hit, and to really go deep soul searching to go, like, what's your purpose? Like, there's 2 men in your life gone. Neither of them had purpose. And I kind of thought, I don't think it's just osteopathy, and I don't think it's just naturopathy. And having gone on the path where I thought spirituality was the way as well, I thought the thing is all of these avenues need to be brought together. And to isolate them all just made no sense. And I look at the medical world and the reductionist paradigm, and also wanting to blame something, that I thought we actually need to come back together and bring holism back. So having also done a lot of work with people called Sweet Medicine. So I've done a Red Lodge Longhouse program for 4 years. I've done sexuality workshops called Godoshkas, de-armoring, and that covered very much a lot of the sexual aspect that I'd been missing and learning about the catalytic energy. So after having all these experiences in the last few decades, I wanted to make something that was meaningful and holistic, hence birthing the WAB method and wanting to look at your physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, and sexual sides to know that you need to have that balance to truly be healthful. And if you only focus on 1 or 2 or 3 aspects, you're never going to have that true kind of definition of what health is, I think. I think that's about me and kind of how I got to where I am in a very long-winded way. Hence, you're going to be doing movement and nutrition and learning about self-responsibility and accountability of our actions as women, because I think that if we can move more into what it is to be the benevolent matriarch, feminine, whether you're in the life cycle of crone or hag or whatever it is, that by being healthy ourselves, by being full of energy, by having our minds with clarity and sobriety, that we will be able to bring birth into the world what it is we're meant to, not physically birth into the world as in children, but to birth in the projects, the ideas, whether that's happiness or humor or a health program in my case, to really have what you need to move forward.
So this is my clinical experience. It's in naturopathy, herbalism, nutrition. Also studied homeopathy, but would refer that to someone else who's an expert in that field. Doctor of osteopathy. I've been a remedial massage therapist, qualified in the last 20 plus years, but have been treating bodies since I was 5. Also have an advanced diploma in beauty, and I've done work with metaphysical healing and psychic readings. So that's me. I'm here to try and help you fall in love with your body again, maybe even for the first time, and just see how incredible it is on all levels, like physically, mentally, spiritually, sexually, and emotionally. And to really know what you are capable of as a human being and help nurture you back to health.